So today we're sitting here with Henri Kirsten of Miller Long-Term Rentals, and Henri has been in the long-term rental business for coming up on 8 years right now. And what we wanted to do is just kind of unpack what's happening in that segment of our related industry, which frankly, from my experience, and you can attest to this, Henri, is that it sure seemed like that followed the same wave with values in the real estate market, meaning that it seemed like every day we would see reports about how real estate values were going up, and then everyone was sort of aghast at how rental rates kept going up too. The demand for housing overall just kept being in parallel. And so we kind of want to talk about what you saw in 2023, and then also maybe just take a look at what you think is going to be developing in 2024. So let's just kind of take a look at the evolution. Back at that time, you think about the peak of the market, I think, for real estate, even though values have pretty much held, real estate demand, as we know, year and a half, 2 years ago, was super, super high. To talk to us just about the evolution, have you come to a crescendo on that, and has demand started to soften? What's kind of the current state of the rental market?
We found that when the property market was hot and properties were selling like they were and prices were being driven up, a lot of our owners decided to put their properties in the market and sell.
Oh, sure.
And hence we lost a lot of our rental property.
So your inventory dropped a little bit.
Significantly. Yeah. I think we're talking 30, 40, and even up to 50% of our business disappeared.
Because guys like me sold your inventory out.
Correct. And owners took advantage of the high prices. Because the returns on rental properties are generally not great.
Understood.
And they've been sitting on these properties, some of them since 2005, 2006.
So perfect time to sell that investment property, cash out, etc.
Yep.
And so when that inventory dropped and the demand was still present, because we got a ton of people that have moved into this area. Not all of them bought real estate, so they got to live someplace. So it's either in something you own, it's with your family, or it's something that you're renting. So demand went up and inventory dropped. So that's basically why those rates started skyrocketing.
Definitely in that period when you guys were selling like crazy, rent prices were driven up as well. Yeah. And we had difficulty finding accommodation for people who came here. People who came here to escape COVID.
Yes.
And it was just a very difficult time for us. We ended up with zero inventory for a while. For about 3 months, we had zero inventory.
So, but put in another way, from a business perspective, everything you had on your books in your inventory was rented.
It was rented.
And you were no vacancy.
Yeah. And we had inquiries virtually on a daily basis. People wanted to come here, be here because of COVID, be here because they like being here after spending time here on vacation, that sort of thing. And we had, for a long time, we had zero inventory, which is not ideal, obviously, if you're a property manager.
No, of course, right? I mean, it's great to think your inventory is booked, but you're always looking to continue to build up your business. And during that time, listen, affordability is a real issue. All of a sudden, real estate values go up. We know that interest rates have gone up. In your world, your rental rates went up. So I'm sensitive to that, but I'm also sensitive thinking about, anybody that's interested and has a long-term rental prospective property is thinking about getting into that investment side of things. To me, I'm wondering if that filtered and created the highest quality rental profile you could get. In other words, if you had a bunch of candidates for a limited inventory that could afford it, you probably were placing really good quality renters in each instance.
Absolutely. As a general rule, we have only good quality renters.
I'm sure that everybody is glad to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. With COVID, so many people came down here, not with a very short-term outlook, but with a plan to stay here for a while. And we were able to place lawyers from New York and industrialists from Chicago into our rental properties at the time, and they paid top rents, obviously.
Right, impressive, maybe even unprecedented rents that we've seen in the area.
Yes, and we have seen that, particularly in the short term, which is not my market. But even in the 91-day up market where I am active, the rents definitely went up significantly, and we could make some good money for our owners. The other thing that happened, Chip, as well, if I may add, a lot of our long-term owners diverted to short-term because they were painted a rosy picture of very high occupancy rates and very high demand, and they diverted to short term. They took the property off that market.
So they went from long term, short term basically means the vacation rental market.
Correct.
Right? So they went to the week to week instead of the year over year.
Correct.
Process.
And also to capture some of the COVID escapees.
Sure.
Who became
Yeah,
sick.
of course.
Yes.
Right. So the grass looked greener on the other side, but what's that? Have you heard back from anybody about whether that's worked out?
Absolutely, it worked out for a while, at the time, but now they're coming back. They're coming back into the long-term market because the occupancy rates are not where they expected them to be.
Sure, or needed them to be, because that's one of the sensitivities, I think. If you've got somebody that wants to use their property and get some rental income, then your world doesn't work great because you can't co-occupy with a long-term tenant. What's nice about the short-term market is that you can come in for a couple weeks and rent it here and there, etc. But you might be counting on consistent rental income, and I know that world has got a lot of competition. I know that this last year, 2023, wasn't the stellar year that some people were expecting. So some people are migrating back into your world saying, I want a steady check. Get me a long-term renter. I don't want to have to worry about it. And by the way, the renter pays for a lot of the costs. They pay for their utilities, maybe some of the services, etc. So it's a different economic model, but for some of those folks, it may just be that much more consistent and predictable.
Now, I've had a number of short-term come back to the long-term market for those reasons that you've just given. The higher commission rates that they pay the agent, the high turnover, the high damage rate that they get in their properties, the cost to keep them going, and they didn't get the occupancy they were expecting. So those guys are coming back to us.
And if they don't need to occupy the property, then they want to get it back into more of your traditional investment kind of profile. So now we look at where we are right now in the transition from 23 to 24. What are you seeing now? Is inventory built back up? Do you have more? There's more inventory.
Definitely. In the last 2 months, we've seen an inflow of properties again. Those buyers who bought realize that they need cash flow to keep those properties going. And they know they can get it in the long-term rental market. So we do find that properties are coming back to us.
And are you having to moderate the rates a little bit? You think about those unprecedented levels. Are you still getting those, or are you finding that maybe some of the rental rates are having to soften a little bit to find a demand?
It's the typical market of supply and demand. There's an oversupply at the moment, and the way to fix that is to drop your price, and hopefully you'll get it rented. And of course, we're all doing the same thing. All the property managers are doing the same thing. And also on the other side of the coin, the new owners that we now have who bought property here will face a significant increase in the property tax compared to what the previous owner paid, because prices went up, and the Treasury, the Beaufort County, will base the new property tax on these new high prices. They don't get the 15% cap that you and I enjoy. And I often get calls from prospective investors, and I tell them the whole truth because I don't like painting a false picture. That there will be a significant property tax cost, probably 2 to 3 months of your rent. Will go into property taxes, and that cannot be avoided. That's the way it is.
But somebody knows that going in, right? You're realistic about what the kind of the economic model looks like. And one thing is for certain, it's not a rosy picture if you don't have a renter in place, right? So you want to get somebody placed. And so now you're dealing with higher inventory, maybe a little bit of downward pressure on those rates. You're out there marketing these things effectively. And is the general sense that maybe in the first half of this next year, you might start picking up more occupancy? I know we get some people that, towards the transition of school years and that sort of thing tends to be a time where you see people that are transitioning into the market.
Traditionally, our good months for rentals in this long-term rental business would be Feb, March, and April, when people start planning for the next school year. And they would like to rent something to start and not immediately buy. Also, with high interest rates at the moment, buying is becoming increasingly difficult, as you know. There are still cash buyers out there, and yes, if they can afford it, that's wonderful. But your average middle-class American who does not have that sort of cash and will be dependent on a mortgage loan.
So as interest rates in my world sit a little high, your world, the rental rates coming down a little bit, it starts to look like a pretty appealing opportunity. So you're expecting some of that demand to pick up and meet up with some of that inventory.
Absolutely.
And what are you telling your owners now with regard to condition of property? I know in our world, if you have a property that is not selling, you sometimes need to look at price, certainly, but you might also need to look at appeal or condition of property. So is it pretty typical for an owner to be expected to sort of do the fresh paint and carpet and that sort of thing? Is that pretty standard in your world?
Very much so, especially now with the higher demand. You need to make your property look better than the other guy's property to get it rented. And yes, we're doing new flooring, we're doing painting, we're doing sometimes even new bathrooms and kitchens, and of course that would make it a much more viable rental property.
And people respond to it. Everybody, like in our world, people are always looking at inventory online. I'm sure they do that on your website, etc. And so the more appealing that looks, the more compelled they are to come take a look at it. So your outlook for 2024, is there anything else to consider you kind of have on your forecast or your kind of radar of issues that you're monitoring or that you think folks might want to hear about in your particular segment of the market?
Well, as I said, we are in a very competitive the rental market, and we need to make our product look better than the other property manager or the other owners. So we need to start focusing on that. Yeah. And we are going to have to look at our rental prices. It may have to come down a bit more.
Yeah, sure.
Went up 30%, may come down 10%, who knows. But we need to get these properties rented. You cannot forever sit on inventory. There has been a recent development in our market where the playing fields are a little bit more level, where most of us now list on Zillow. So it's not your MLS, but the properties are there, and a prospective renter can go in and see all the properties in Hilton Island on Zillow and make that comparison.
That's really interesting, because I know in your world, unlike my world, it's driven by the multiple listing service where all the members are putting their inventory in there. You guys don't play quite like that. But Zillow sort of leveled that playing field, and that's one centralized. That's really interesting. Yeah. So you're probably getting inquiries, etc., from that source as much as anything.
Well, I pay for the service. It's like your MLS. We pay for it, and yes, we do get inquiries only of the properties that we list there.
Sure.
We do not get an inquiry for my competitors.
So that stays. So those walls kind of stay up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Well, I think that with how long you've been doing this, and you're also, Henry, you've been a valued client for life for Collins Group for many years, which we appreciate, and we've always admired the kind of way you run your business, and you're probably much like we are. We just like why we like to do these kinds of videos. We want to educate people on the process, and so if somebody has an interest in maybe long-term renting their property or buying a property to long-term rent, I assume you're sort of always available to go do what we sort of call an on-site assessment or consultation, really tear down the numbers and take a look at it. Be realistic.
Yes.
Like, if I'm going to get into this, what are my taxes going to be if we can project that? And what are the carrying costs going to be? What am I responsible for as an owner? What does the tenant pay for? What's the realistic rate? What do I need to do to get it ready in order to go on that market? That's probably all sort of part and parcel of your daily business.
That's exactly part of the service that we provide. My background is finance, so I can help prospective buyers with that, number crunching, and come up with a realistic expectation.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to make a lot of money out of their rental property, but to make a contribution to the cost that they have, because they already own the property and it might as well earn some income to offset the costs.
Yeah,
It works well for us.
Yeah, well, I sure appreciate having the chance to kind of unpack what's happening in your realm. I never get tired of that wonderful South African accent that you always bring to the table, and hope this has been helpful for you all as you're thinking about that long-term rental facet of this low country marketplace, and we look forward to talking to you all soon.